Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us on our Monday night Zoom call. We have an awesome special guest, Ansley Summerville. She is a Ruby ambassador with Plexus Worldwide and our fearless leader, Jennifer Brett's power partner. So I'm just super excited that you are on here with us tonight to give us fresh perspective and to just shove us, give us the extra little power kick towards the end of October. We wanted to talk tonight about Ansley's story, you guys, because I love the way you post. I love how outgoing you are on social media and just how fun and energetic you are with, the voice that you have with your audience. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain. I first want to hear about your story. We just, before I started recording, we were kind of talking about mine, but I want to hear more about yours, like why you joined, how long you've been doing this, and we'll start there.
Okay, so first of all, please let me know if the music in the background is way too loud or you can't, if there's too much stuff, because I am in a hotel. And so I'm in the lobby trying to chat with y'all, and I forgot my headphones. But, so how did I start with Plexus? So I have a friend who I've been friends with for over 10 years, and she was super duper sick. She was in and out of the hospital all the time. And I just decided, so I started watching her, and she was, starting to feel better and whatever. I also saw her Facebook post, and I wanted to block her. I was scrolling through it, but, she was my friend, so I was trying not to. And then one day I saw her post, do you want a sample of the speaking drink? Well, I'm a military wife, and I'm frugal. And so I was like, I'll take anything free. But it was also she had crickets on her profile, and you know how that is. You don't want crickets. And I was like, I had done network marketing before, so I kind of knew how that was going to go. And I was like, you know what? I'll at least comment on it. So maybe some other people will, reach out to her. So I was like, I'll take one. And knowing full right that I was not going to buy anything because I don't have the money, and B, that I thought it was a weight loss product. I didn't need that. I had just lost 70 pounds. I was, I was at the place that I felt like I needed to be, but I didn't feel good, you guys. I was exhausted. I was playing this part for a really long time. I don't know if any of y'all were this before Plexus, but I was, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, but I was that mom that didn't want to get out of bed. I was passing the iPad to my kids so that I could sleep in a couple of extra hours, or any amount of time that I could. And my kids were actually missing preschool. I didn't want to cook for my husband. I was taking naps in the middle of the day. I was, my laundry was piling up. I was doing all these things. And then my friends would see me and I'd be like, hey, I'm super mom. You're right. Okay. Y'all with me? And, but I didn't feel good, and I knew that, and my friends started to see that. I started complaining all the time. I started just being, kind of Debbie Downer, and that's not my personality. I'm a super positive person, and I like being that way. So it was just not me. And so people started, asking me if I was okay, and, they were kind of pitying me, and I knew that. But then the other part was I had lost 70 pounds prior to Plexus. Had gained 20 of it back. I just had moved to England, and I was struggling with some depression, and I was not able to get the weight off this time. I was just talking with Jen. I have PCOS as well. And so it is so hard to lose weight when you have PCOS, so hard. Your body processes everything the same way instead of a candy bar and grapes, same kind of sugar for me. Okay, so I was really struggling with that. I had to kill myself in the gym 7 days a week and count every morsel that went into my mouth to lose weight. And I had done it, and I was like, I am not taking a weight loss product. I have done this the right way, and everybody should have to work as hard as I did, And so anyways, I don't even really remember. Oh, I do remember. I also have this disorder called MTHFR. So I was talking to her on the phone, and I said, look, she sent me a 7-day trial. That's kind of what hooked me. She's my friend, and so she, instead of sending me a sample, she sent me a 7-day trial, and I knew that was, kind of her olive branch, and so I took it. I was feeling good. I thought, wow, how come I'm not so tired? How come I'm not having these cravings? Within 7 days, I definitely could see a difference. So I started talking to my husband about it. He's like, we should really, consider this, and I was like, I don't know. So I called her, and I just said, I have MTHFR, and if you're company is such a great health and wellness company. How come you still have folic acid in your multivitamin? That's what I said to her. Literally, as we were on the phone, she got an email that they had just changed the multivitamin X Factor to methylfolate. And I had to pay for my multivitamin prior to that through the military. They didn't cover it. It was extremely expensive. I literally said, okay, sign me up. Like that was it. I was sold on that product alone, that I knew I would take that for the rest of my life. Why not try the rest of this stuff? So I did. I signed up as an ambassador because, again, I'm cheap, and my husband wanted to do it with me. So I just decided I would do that. The business side, I had zero desire to sell Plexus. I just wanted to feel better. But I'm kind of an all-in or all-out girl. So I decided that I was going to at least start sharing on Facebook so that I could take the burden off my husband a little bit, because I didn't have an income. I absolutely did not want a job. I said that to every single person. I did not want to work. I had done network marketing before. I failed miserably. And so I started posting on Facebook. There was a wonderful world of private message that I had no idea about. People started messaging me, and my business started exploding. I went silver in like 47 days. I went gold I believe at month 4. Is that right? Then I went back to back, gold, senior gold, ruby, senior ruby. And it's been an incredible journey. It's been a complete blessing. It's completely changed my life. I am a military wife. I live in England. I hugged my family goodbye for 5 years a year ago. Had this not been for Plexus, I would not be here. I have been to Texas to visit my family 4 times in a year, you guys. Like, I cry over it all the time, because there's no way that my poor family could be here if it wasn't for Plexus. And I'm so incredibly thankful. My husband's currently deployed, and I'm able to spend this wonderful time with my family. So that's kind of my story. Sorry, it's long.
No, it's awesome. I'm so glad you're able to share. It's so awesome, like, hearing where the leaders in our company have come from, and that we all really pretty much start in the same place with, no idea what blessing has just been thrown into our laps. So that's really cool. If you could give a new ambassador one tip, what would it be?
Don't hold back. Jump all in. This is nothing. This is like nothing you've ever seen before. Forget everything you know about network marketing, and pretend this is the best job somebody's ever handed to you, and it will be.
Awesome. I love that. I think a lot of us get tripped up on, and it doesn't really matter like what stage of the game you're in, but a lot of us get tripped up on, I don't know where to go next. Like, I got this one teeny tiny little goal. Like, what's next for me? I don't know. Like, but this really, do you agree, like, kind of teaches us how to dream bigger, because it forces us to think like what's next for ourselves?
Yeah, I've always been a dreamer, but I just never really had I always had the passion and stuff, but I just never really had anything that made me feel like it was possible. And this is the first time that I felt like my dreams can become realities, and they're not just going to be dreams. And I'm seeing some of those little things come true, every day. You guys, I'm sitting here in the Great Wolf Lodge in Dallas, Texas, in Grapevine, like 3 days before I'm getting ready to go to an all-expense paid trip to the Gaylord across the street. I have my children with me, my mom and my dad are with me, and like I am getting to splurge on something for them just because. Like, I didn't even think twice. I swiped my card and said, let's go. I've never been able to do that in my life. And that, I'm not saying it's all about money. It's really not. But to be somebody that counted every single penny and worried about whether or not the stuff in her grocery cart she could check out with, to being somebody that can just say yes to little things that make your kids light up, is like, it's a complete blessing.
Totally priceless. I love that Plexus, we were talking about how unexpected this blessing is to so many, obviously, like literally hundreds of thousands of ambassadors now, but how this is a vehicle to make people realize like bigger and better dreams for their families and for themselves. It's crazy cool. So one of the biggest reasons I wanted to have you on this call, Ansley, is because you have such a cool presence about you on Facebook, and I really feel like, again, at any stage of the game, ambassadors can learn a lot from how you conduct yourself. With your team online, with how encouraging, like how bubbly and happy, positive you are. But one thing in particular sparked, just kind of, clicked, and I felt led to ask you to do this call with us, is when you posted the selfie with your two plane mates coming here. I just loved that. Can you tell us a story about that?
Yeah, just about them. Oh man. So okay, so do you want me to go into like how I talk to people in general, or just talk about them?
Talk about like how and why you represent yourself the way that you do on.
Okay, so because I kind of feel like I have to back up at least. So I've kind of gotten to this place where, although I come off talkative and I come off bold, I come off, bubbly and all those things, I'm really, really shy in person until I know you. And I don't mean like even if I've just met you on Facebook, like I can walk up to you and say hello, that's not the problem. But I'm usually like, if I walked into a party, I would kind of like sit in the corner or like stand up against the wall until somebody comes up to me, and then I'm comfortable. And then I'm like, okay, I can do this. But I'm not really somebody like people assume because I'm loud that I'm a sales girl, and I'm not. I'm really not. But I've had to kind of come out of my comfort zone a little bit, and so I wanted to talk about that. I've always had this voice in my head, and if you relate with me in this, I want to hear from you. So I would stand in the grocery line or wherever I was, and somebody would talk about like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, and they'd pull up their Red Bull or whatever it is, and I'd be standing behind them like, like in my head, I never said this out loud, oh my gosh, you need Plexus, like you don't even understand, I was totally you, like I just had this like voice in my head, and I see somebody else smiling, so I know you probably do it, or it was, it would just be about something that maybe they were talking about having diabetes or, stomach problems, whatever. And it was just like this voice in my head of how bad I wanted them to be on Plexus. And so I tell people a lot, you've got to open your mouth. Like I kept feeling like, ooh, it was like right there on the tip of my tongue, but I didn't know how to say it. And so I've just had to decide, drawing my line in the sand, and I'm just going to open my mouth. Most of the time, these people will never see me again. So why not? Why not try? Because maybe they could be my next rock star. Something I didn't know about my very own upline, Rhonda Hensel is my Emerald upline. Her Emerald upline is Felicia Jasper. And I just learned a couple of months ago that they actually met online in a group for, I believe it was for Hashimoto's thyroid disorder. And Rhonda was just at her wit's end. Like she was so sick. And Felicia private messaged her and said, I know you've tried everything. I really think you need to try Plexus. And she was so desperate that she said she just would. And that's how they met. And they never met. They had never met before in person ever. And so I'm like, when I heard that, I was like, okay, my rock star could be just somebody standing next to me in the grocery store. And I just don't think I ever realized that. I think I thought, because I sit behind my computer a lot, and that's kind of my comfort zone. I can type about anything, but actually having to be, walk up to somebody was kind of hard for me. So anyway, so I've had to just come out. So I'll tell you the story about the airport. There's actually two stories in that. So the first thing I did was go to check into my, flight, and I stood next to this woman that was checking into hers, and they asked this question, which I had never heard before, and it was like, do you have any medication in your bag that you're gonna need for for when you get off the plane? And she's like, well, yeah. And they said, well, you have to take it with you on the airplane. She's like, no, it's syringes and needles. And I immediately knew that she was diabetic. And so I realized it kind of clicked. So here's the first thing I want you to say is listen. Okay, listen to all the conversations that are around you, because those are little clues to you on a constant basis of who you could be reaching out to. So I heard her say that. She, was like, is it going to be okay? Are you sure? And I just spoke up. I was just friendly. I didn't say anything about Plexus. Okay, I just was starting. The other thing is, being intentional. Okay, create a relationship with someone. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be their best friend, but just talk to them, be friendly, so that you're approachable. So I just was like, hey, actually, because I have little kids, they let us take other things through that, that aren't necessarily on the sheet. If it's medically necessary, it's going to be fine. So I really didn't even think, at that time I was like, oh, I really want to say something, and I didn't, because we were, how hectic checking into an airport is, right? So we went through security. I didn't see her. I sat down at my gate, and she sat across from me. And I was like, okay, this is my opportunity. She put her head in a book, and I was like, oh, I don't want to interrupt her, right? And I just said, you know what, I've got to. So I stood up, and I walked across the room with business hand and sample in my hand. Okay, so that's the next thing. Always have a business card and a sample available. I don't care if you're traveling, put it in the outside zipper of your bag. Always have it there ready to go. So I put it in my hand. I kind of like held it behind me because I didn't want to like walk up like, here's, and flex the sample. And I just decided I was going to be bold. And so I just said, hey, can I ask you a question? First I said, hey, how did it go? Were you able to get your medicine through the gate? She's like, yeah, they didn't give me any problems. And so I had that conversation with her about my kids. And I said, I'm actually able to bring through liquid and all sorts of things. They just kind of test it and wipe a strip across it and let me go through. So we just started having this conversation. She's like, oh, that's really great, whatever. And so I said, can I ask you if you're type 1 or type 2 diabetic? She told me she was type 2. And I was like, no brainer, y'all. No brainer. You know that there's a lot of things Plexus can help, but type 2 diabetics, like that is huge. And so I said, has anybody ever talked to you about Plexus? And she said, no, I've never heard of Plexus. And so I just kind of gave her my spiel, like, well, I work for Plexus, the health and wellness company. And I just said, it was actually created for type 2 diabetics. And I'd really love to share it with you. And so I started just talking to her about the different products, and she seemed really interested. And so we just I never even got my business card. I held on to it, and we just started talking about things. And at the end of that conversation, we had really kind of created this small relationship. And she had told me some things about her family and some different things, and had, talked to me about other people in her life that, could use Plexus. And so I said, hey, can I add you to my Facebook? That's the next thing I want to talk to you about. Do not leave that contact without a contact. Okay, if you don't have their information written down, the best thing you can do is get them on your Facebook. Why? Because you post about Plexus every single day. Even if they don't immediately respond to you, even if you're cold messaging them later on or something like that and they don't respond to you, every single day they're going to see something about Plexus. And maybe 6 months from now, the timing will be right, and they'll reach back out to you and say, hey, I met you in the airport and I'm ready to try this. Okay, so just getting them in your network. When they talk about widening your network, that's how you widen your network. Because if I handed her a business card and walked away, she's never going to call me again. Or there's a big possibility that she's never going to call me again, right? So getting there on my Facebook, she can delete me, sure, but at least it gives me an opportunity to know that she's going to see my posts for a little while. And it reminds me that I can go back, and when I'm going through my Facebook contacts, I can go back and go, oh yeah, that's that girl. So I handed her a sample, added her to my Facebook, told her I would message her, contact her the following week, and moved on. Okay, so that was number one. So then I actually had zero intention of talking to anybody on the airport. I was super behind, or on the airplanes. I was super behind on reading my network marketing book that we had just started a Zoom, kind of like book study on. So like, I'm going to get on this airplane and I'm going to read chapters 1 through 3. I was like, going to do this. So I get in my seat. I immediately pull out my book in my head, my head in my book, hoping that nobody will bother me. A young gentleman sits down next to me, and another guy sits down next to him. And like 5 minutes into the plane ride, he like does one of these, like leans over and it's like, hi. And I'm like, oh my, like, I'm like, can you not see I'm reading, and so he was, I don't even remember what started the conversation, but something happened and we started talking about something, and he was asking me, if I was going to Nashville by myself. He was an older gentleman. I was going to Memphis to visit my little sister. And so he was like, you're going to Memphis by yourself? And I said, well, no, I'm going to go, meet my little sister. And I don't know, somehow got on the conversation of why I was in town. And in general, and because he asked me where I was from, and I said England, and so that usually sparks conversation with people because it's unique. So the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is, what is your job? I know there are a few of you that might have other jobs, but for the purpose of conversations with people that you meet out of the blue, your job is a Plexus ambassador. Okay, if you want to talk about your other job and at some point, that's great. But when they talk to you about what your job is, you are a full-time Plexus ambassador. Why? Because that immediately people think that network marketing is a hobby, and it might be your hobby right now, but if you want this to be your business, you have to fake it till you make it. Okay. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't mean that in like, I don't lie to people about things, but if somebody says, what do you do? I say, actually work for a health and wellness company called Plexus. That is not a lie. Even if you do 3 jobs, that is not a lie. You just didn't tell about the other 2 jobs. So I'm a health and wellness, I work for Plexus which is a health and wellness company, sorry. And so people usually start talking to me about that. So I kind of fit it into every conversation that I can. And we started talking about different things, and I used every opportunity I could to bring up Leaders Retreat, to bring up, when they asked me, about why I was there, I was like, actually I've earned an all expense paid trip to Dallas through my company. And they're like, what? Like all these things, topics come up. And so, we just led one thing to another. And so when they would talk about something that they struggle with or something, I was like, well, actually, my company actually has something that would really help with that. And so then of course I had pamphlets, I had samples. So I pull out a pamphlet. I said, hey, you may not be interested in this at all, but here's a pamphlet, here's a sample. Can I add you to my Facebook? And they immediately said yes. And then I said, hey, can I take a selfie with you just for my business purposes? And they were more than happy to oblige to that. So that's my story from the airplane, kind of how that, got started. So I have a lot of those stories because I've just decided to open my mouth.
Sorry, it cut out for some silly reason. Love technology. I love how, you just one day drew your line in the sand and decided to go for it. That's kind of the point of this business, right? Like overcoming things that are scary. I love it. At convention, one of the biggest things that I took away from that was when Jessica Heffley told us just to do it afraid. And that's resonated with me ever since. The times that I'm standing in line at the grocery store and someone yawns, that's the time that you speak up. And it is a daily decision to wake up. You put one foot in front of the other. You do things because you know what you want to accomplish long term, but you also know what you have in front of you on the daily. And I love how you take advantage of that. So I'm going to wrap up so we don't go super long. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Any other advice that you like to pass on to your team that you can bestow upon us?
I talked about most of it. Let's see. Just be confident, you guys. Be confident in what you have. You are not selling or pushing a product, okay? We have an amazing 60-day money-back guarantee, so you're not duping anyone into anything, okay? They have a choice to get their money back, okay? There's not very many companies or products that allow you to do that. And then just fit it into every conversation that you can. Be intentional and listen for those opportunities. I talked about it at the OBGYN today. I talked about it at the airport. I've talked about it at the grocery store. I signed a random ambassador. I've signed a random ambassador on a wine tour. I've signed a random ambassador at the grocery store. I signed a random ambassador at my YMCA. So you never know who's going to say yes to your opportunity. But if you don't ask, somebody else will.
I love all of it. I don't know about you guys, but I took a ton of notes. So this is awesome. I took a lot away from it, and I just am so grateful that you took the time out of your vacation and your night with your kids and your mom and your dad and everything. Ansley, it was awesome to talk to you and get to know you a little bit better. So That's it, you guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Enjoy Leaders Retreat. You deserve it. Give everybody big hugs for me, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Bye.